Welcome to the Florida Real Estate and Entrepreneur Podcast, where we interview the best and the brightest business and real estate leaders. Our mission is to inspire and help 1,000 entrepreneurs to start and succeed in real estate and entrepreneurship. We will give you the exact playbook to succeed in your business through the experience of those who blaze the path. We're bringing the what's working today directly to you. Let's get started. Welcome back to the Florida Real Estate and Entrepreneur Podcast. I have friends of mine, and my guests today are Jen and Joe. Della Fave. Did I say that right?
You nailed it.
Yeah, perfect.
Yes, I nailed it. Cool. I should have asked before, but good. Della Fave, I got that down. They come from the real estate investing space, husband and wife couple. I think that makes them unique because that has its own set of challenges. And they're just really masters of the creative finance space. And I think it's so fascinating. I can't wait to dive in today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Adam.
Cool. Okay. So what's your origin story? How did you get started? Where did you come from? And how did you get to your business to where it is today?
Well, it's him. I blame him. No, I was a teacher. So in 2008, I had already been teaching for a handful of years, loved teaching middle school English. 7th grade was my favorite. And 2008, we met in January and he was working at a dealership. And so real estate, we each owned our own house. And that was about all I knew about that. But he kept talking about how he wanted to buy properties and fix them up and, maybe have rentals one day. And I didn't quite see the picture until we started buying one property at a time.
Yeah, and many of you have heard in 2008, the market was taking a dip. And we were finding deals like in really nice neighborhoods that were fixer-uppers just on the MLS. It was crazy. And so I had a job at a dealership. I had access to people who worked at banks, but all I did was I paid cash for my first property. It was only about $47,000. So we weren't dealing multiple, millions of dollars or anything like that. But we bought it, we remodeled it, we rented it out. Just like many other people, you went back to the bank, pulled all your cash back out. And so it's called BRRRR. I didn't know that was even a name.
No clue. It's hashtag BRRRR a couple years later.
But that's what that stands for: buying, renovating, renting, refinancing, repeat. So with either way, we were doing some of that and doing about one deal a year, every other year sometimes. It wasn't anything too crazy. And then in 2016, now at this point, we were married. Very smart. We had 2 kids. Jen walked away from teaching and I was working at the car dealership still. And we had a handful of rentals and we were refinancing out of one of our next projects. And the bank was like, hey, Joe, at 10 mortgages, we'll cut you guys off. And so that's when I was like, well, I definitely know we wanted more than 10 rentals. Like, what are we going to do now? And that's when we found out about like this big umbrella term called creative finance, which is like how to buy cash flowing rentals without banks, without huge down payments, without having to use your credit. And we had great credit, so that wasn't the issue, but you didn't need it. And you didn't even need to go to the bank. So after we did that, I saw the picture. We hired somebody to help us like coach us through how to do it. And our very first deal was back in 2017. We got in touch with a seller named Steve. Steve inherited Grandpa's house, owned it outright. He lived an hour away, was renting it to a friend, and didn't want to do the hassles anymore. And this was the first house that we looked at, honestly, that wasn't a junker. It was turnkey, ready to go. And he wanted a good price for it. It wasn't like I'm getting it some huge discount, although we got a deal. But he was open to doing seller financing where we bought it. We closed on it. We even paid his price. But what we did is we bought it with a 0% mortgage with a $500 payment. And we only put $100 down. Mm-hmm. So $100 down, 0% mortgage, $500 payment on a turnkey house. Now we did pay tax insurance on top of that, but we were cash flowing like $500. And then at the same time, we actually learned about what rent to own was. So when our renter moved in months down the road, they actually gave us $10,000 to move into the house. So we were making $500 plus paying off our debt at $500 a month. We just saw this was like, wow. So that's what really I would say ignited it. Seller Steve.
Super powerful. Seller Steve got you guys going. So you guys are originally from New York. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is in Rochester, New York. That house was about 10 minutes from where we live. So one of the suburb towns. And yeah, that was just our own backyard. So that's where we got started. We moved to Florida now. We got smart years ago, realized I don't have to be freezing cold all winter. Yep. And so now we live south of Tampa in Florida, and it's beautiful and it's sunshine. Even this time of year, it's still in the 80s and it's November. So I love it.
It's beautiful here. Yes, I love it here too. And so do you guys do deals in both New York and Florida today?
Yes.
We do. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you can do this anywhere. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, that's what COVID taught us. So we did this part-time up until 2020. And when the world shut down, especially New York State, I got really excited because the dream of us working together and building our business came true a lot faster. I thought it was going to take a few more years of acquiring more properties, but he didn't go back to the dealership. And we just hunkered down in 2020 and went, and doubled our portfolio. We learned how to grow a team. We just, decided to go all in on ourselves. And we realized we could do this from anywhere because everything was through FaceTime or Zoom. You can get boots on the ground with your properties. And the kicker was I started homeschooling the kids and we were like, we're not tied down anywhere. So you can literally be any place in the world and buy properties as long as you have systems in place.
That is super cool. Do you still homeschool?
Oh, yeah. We're in our 4th year right now.
Oh, wow. We did homeschooling in COVID time, but by we, not me, my wife. And that was enough for her. She was like, yeah, this is not for me. So, but that's really cool because it does give you a lot of flexibility. Okay, let's talk about creative finance. Man, there's a lot of people that say that. What does that actually mean, Joe? Like, what is that? What could it be? What are the options and possibilities?
Yeah, so there's a ton. That's why I loved it. So the first deal we just talked about was part of what they call creative finance, which we kind of said it's buying real estate without banks, without using a credit check. Because I didn't get a credit check there. I didn't have to give Steve 2 years of tax returns. I didn't have to give a bank to say, okay. I found an attorney who just closed the deal saying, I'm buying it for this price. I'm going to pay him this much. The attorney wrote all that down. We signed the paperwork. I gave him his $100 down deposit at McDonald's, so not anything too savvy. And before you know it, with $3,000-$4,000 later, we own a house. So then the next deal we learned was how to buy a house where the seller, she was motivated. She bought it, was single, met a guy, got married, moved into his house. Exactly what happened to us, but happened to somebody else. They had a family. They didn't want the other house as a rental. So she said, I just need out of this thing. Tenants moved out in the middle of the night, made it a mess. I don't want to rent it anymore. But they fixed it up. So we bought that and I explained I could buy it, but the loan will stay in your name until I get it either refinanced or cashed out later on. And that could be years, it could be decades, who knows? But until then, I will buy it. I will close on it. I own it, but the loan will stay in your name and I'm just going to make those payments on your behalf. And the reason why is because she had a really low rate, a super low payment. And she was like, yeah, I don't care. You're going to cover all of the closing costs. And I know this house off my back, like, let's go. So she was motivated to sell it. Wasn't like some financial strain, wasn't a junker once again. It was a nice house in a great neighborhood. We still own it. So the $100 down, paid some closing costs. We own that house. And what we bought it for back then, because this is the game of real estate, is obviously cash flow is great and you want that. But it's also too, it's the gains, because what we bought that house for back in 2018, it was a $75,000, maybe $80,000 home. And now it's worth over $200,000.
Wow.
So love real estate. But since then, our renter has been paying down that mortgage, which is still in her name. So it was just another way to do that and find that light. So that's what creative finance is. Sometimes you could buy a free and clear property. Sometimes they might have a mortgage and I could still buy it, but keep the mortgage in their name. So I don't have to get qualified. It's not assuming the loan. I'm not getting my credit checked. I don't need approval from banks. All you need is a really good attorney who's a real estate attorney or a title company who knows how to cross all the T's and dot the I's. You obviously need to explain to the seller so there's full transparency what's happening. But once you talk to motivated people, we have one we're writing up today. So I love like today examples. I have a deal in upstate New York. I'm down in sunny Florida. Lady owns a house. It's a rental. Renters moved out in the middle of the night. Same thing. Left the place a mess. Her mom has 300 acres and is sick. So now she's been spending all the time with her mom and this rental has just been a pain. Payment all in is a little over $600 a month. It rents for probably $1,200 to $1,500. She's willing to sell for what she owes. She owes $52,000 on the house. So if we could give her $2,000 down, cover the closing costs, she's gladly going to let us take over her $640 payment. It's going to need floors. It's going to need carpet, things like that, some paint. But we also offer rent to own handyman special where our renters could even do that too. So it's just a way to get into a deal with a few $1,000s in a cash flowing property.
That is incredible. Okay, so I think what I heard was underneath the umbrella of creative finance, the first example was a seller finance. The property's free and clear. The seller becomes the bank and finances it to you on favorable terms for both people. The second scenario was buying the house subject to the existing mortgage, where you're coming up with terms to the seller, but ultimately you're taking over the mortgage that remains in their name. I'm curious because, you get this a lot. There's a lot of subject to or sub to craze out there. And the number one question around it is, what if the loan is called due? Because that is a risk, the due on sale clause.
Yeah, so there's definitely there's subject to, and that's a really popular way of doing it. I prefer to buy with a wrap versus subject to. They're very similar. The main difference is with subject to, they're just deeding you the property. But if the buyer stops paying, the seller doesn't have a ton of protection a lot of times. Where if you do it with a wrap, that's actually outlining the terms and it gets recorded of how that was performed. But also in that language, it says if the buyer doesn't pay, the seller could get the property back. So I prefer buying with a wrap versus subject to, although they both accomplish, pretty close to the same thing. But the due on sale clause is the acceleration clause. That is documentation, or it's in your note saying, or your mortgage saying that if the deed does transfer, they do have the right to call the loan due. And then you got to remember, most banks don't want to. If it's performing, they're getting payments on time and it's properly insured. So that's one thing. But there's some times where that doesn't even matter anyways, right? Sometimes something happens and they do. So the key to doing it is having an attorney or a title company who know how to do it. And a lot of it, what we do is we buy into a land trust for privacy reasons, but also too, if you deed a property to a trust, they can't call the loan due. They can under some circumstances, but it makes it a lot more challenging. So the name of the game is have insurance on the property the right way, have the seller understand that that's even a possibility. So if it does, there's a few steps that you can do so it prevents it from happening, and just be on the same page as far as communication. So the success is in those little small details. I'd have to do like a little mini masterclass on how to avoid it, but it is totally avoidable and it's not a problem if you know how to do it the right way.
Yeah, I think the other interesting thing about the subject to, taking something subject to a mortgage is like when a bank calls it due, it's not like they call you and say, wire me money right now. It might be due in 30 days. Like, yeah, that's the case. You could always refi. There's you have outs, right? Like even if they were to do that, there are outs and options typically.
I mean, you could deed the property back to the seller and then just redo it under either a contract for deed where the deed still stays in the seller's name, but the house is still sold, or you could even do it as a lease option, right? Or a lease purchase where you have a lease in place now and you have that price set in place. So the loan's in their name and the deed can. So if there was ever a situation, there's ways to just rectify it quickly by don't overcomplicate it. That's all.
Yeah, for sure. I think, a lot of people hear it and they're just like, oh my gosh, there's risk with that. I mean, there's really risk with anything you do. So thanks for educating. I'm not educated on a wrap. What is a wrap? Like, can you explain a wrap to me?
Yeah, you're just buying it. You're taking over their existing mortgage. The only difference is there's going to be the terms are outlined and it's like a new note created, a promissory note. And it's not me having to get a loan. It's just a document saying that we're going to be buying at this amount. We'll be paying this payment for this term length. And this is what's going to happen. And if they don't pay it, there's ways to foreclose or take the property back through that note created. And so that's why I prefer it that way, because it's all well documented. And if the buyer, it saves your sellers and buyers. It puts everybody in a good spot.
Oh, that's good. That's good to know. I learn something every time I interview somebody. I'm ignorant to the wrap. Now I know.
Well, we started in New York, and I want to give my disclosure. New York is a very tough place. So when you're going to bring a subject to deal in front of an attorney, because you have to have a seller or an attorney represent you, the buyer, and the seller. And there's a lot of times the seller's attorney will say, no, there's no recourse if you stop paying. And so what we've realized a long time ago from one of our coaches was do it in a wrap. Now there's a note created. It says if I don't pay, they could take the house back by foreclosure if they wanted to, right? So now it protects their seller, and the attorneys are okay with that, and especially in places like New York. And it's a case-by-case basis because some attorneys will try to talk the seller out of it, but there's many deals that we're still closing, even in Florida, New York, Ohio. I'm working on one right now. Virginia, we're working on one. So it's not just like one place. It works everywhere. We did a deal in North Pole, Alaska.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome. So it really sounds like just like anything on your team, you want to make sure you have a competent title company or attorney. And New York is probably the worst state to close real estate deals in because of all of the attorney hands involved. Like having one attorney involved in anything will really muddy the waters, like literally anything you're doing. But having 3 attorneys involved really makes it complicated. The close times are a lot longer up there.
I don't know. I got to say Massachusetts is probably the most difficult. Now that I've done one deal in Massachusetts, I will never do another.
Yeah. We actually, at one point we bought somebody else's business that was in New Jersey. You know, we're down here doing 200 deals a year. We're like, buy this other person's business. They're doing $1 million a year. We're like, yeah, we'll just take all that and we'll do deals in New Jersey. And then we got introduced to that attorney closing process. And that lasted for some months. And then it was like, yeah, that's not even worth our time. It's way too complicated.
Yeah. So places like Florida, we can close in 10 days. Texas, sometimes it's even less. And so there's some states that are just like so easy peasy to do business in. But let me tell you, I'm going to give away one of our secrets on your show, Adam.
Awesome.
New York has some inexpensive properties in upstate New York, and those suckers cash flow. And most investors like, I don't want to buy in New York. And that's fine, because I will buy all of these that you want to sell us in upstate New York in particular.
Yeah, not New York City.
New York City is this one tiny little spot in the map, which is full of people. This gigantic state of New York where there's mountains and fields and all types of stuff. I will buy, if you have any of those seller finance deals, I will gladly take those. So that's my favorite spot, one of them, to buy real estate, because it's like the hidden. And if you look at what's even in the market today, there's still a shortage of real estate up there. So the market's still fairly hot, where I think in Florida where we are, it's cooled down a little bit.
Quite a bit, yeah. I've got friends up in Buffalo who do really great with cash flowing properties up there. Mm-hmm. But I think when we think about New York, we think about the city, right? And it's like, how can you buy real estate there? It's too expensive. But that's only obviously a small fraction of the...
I mean, I'm looking at a house in New York today for $52,000 is her balance,
wow.
Which she goes, and we're going to buy it for $2,000 over that. And I should cash flow, probably $500 to $600 when we do rent to own.
That's crazy. Yeah. Okay. Talk to me about the back end side of this. So why do you love rent to own? What is it? So instead of just renting it to somebody, you like to rent to own it. Talk about why you like that.
We saw your pipes.
Yeah. Well, if you have a rental, then you realize with that comes repairs and maintenance, as with any property. And so when we had 5 properties, we were getting the calls, even though things had just been renovated, and it was just getting really frustrating to not see like us feeling like we're getting ahead. And it would just felt like there had to be a better way. So we started learning about rent to own. It's really allowing people who maybe have had some credit mishaps or something's happened in life where they can't get a loan at the bank right now. They've got a substantial amount of money for a non-refundable option deposit, which will go towards the purchase of the property. They have that desire to own a home, so they're going to treat the property like their own. And then on top of it, they're taking care of all the maintenance and repairs. So the cash flow you're actually able to keep and not have to worry about spending it on a broken pipe, on an emergency situation, or even fix the roof. Like these people, you're allowing them to rent till they can purchase. And then when they do buy out the property, you make that spread from when you bought it and now when you're selling it. So you really get paid 3 different ways, and it's a more hands-off. I won't say it's passive. Obviously, I don't think that rental income is passive, but it's definitely more on the side of passive when you have a rent-to-own tenant buyer in your property. And ever since we started doing it, it's just been really rewarding too. That's how I got roped into real estate. Was I realized like it was really cool to help people get into a home. I mean, the tears of joy, and they're just renting until like they get across that second finish line of closing docs and all of that. And now they're homeowners, and that feeling is really cool. Like, yes, the money's great, but that feeling of helping someone achieve that home ownership has been honestly one of the coolest things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, you think about it, that's kind of the American dream, right? Like get a good job, get married, and buy a house. Like those 3 things are like, that's what's at least our society says is, part of the American dream. And for a large portion of the population, even more so now with the problems with affordability, buying a house is kind of really not an option for people. But the folks who are able to buy on a lease option or a rent to own type contract or a land contract get an opportunity to experience home ownership. And I really love it too, because you think about buying a house, just the mechanics of buying a house, even if it's on one of those other models, there's pride of ownership. So they're probably going to even if, there are problems with the house, they're probably going to treat the house a little bit better since it's going to be theirs than if they were just renting it.
Yeah. And that's the difference. You do attract a different client, which we love because they do take a lot of pride in the property. Every year, a few of our renters actually qualify and buy the house, which is great because you get a big old check every time they do. And we don't cry over losing a door because we could reinvest that big old check into buying more. If we lose one door, I could pick up 2 or 3 or 4 more others because of the way we buy. So I think that's really great too. And just helping people, because a lot of times they're just good people who had something bad happen and their credit took a dip, like the one we just did in New York. She got a divorce and her husband moved out and stopped paying all the stuff and credit went down, but they sold the house. She's got a great job. And when they sold the house, they paid off all of their debt. So she's got no debt, great paying job. But her credit score is down right now. Doesn't qualify for a mortgage today, but she wants to have something where she could plant her garden. So she actually gave like this map of where like all the veggies are going and things like that. And your renters typically don't do that.
No.
And so the fact that she did, and we got $30,000 for her to move into the house, which is great too. Because, we just put some money into making it beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the other cool thing about the rent to own or lease option type model is typically these people getting into the property give a down payment. Some people do a percentage, some people just do a fixed number, but you're not just putting a rental out there, but you're typically getting a $10,000 or $20,000 check or sometimes more to place that tenant, that potential homeowner who's also going to cash flow money on a monthly basis, but you're also getting the big check. So I think Jen, you mentioned it, you get paid multiple ways, and it can be really powerful for your business. I'm curious how you guys are finding deals.
Yeah, well, we love Facebook, to be quite honest. And we fell into that hack a few years ago. And it really was the one lady that Joe mentioned, she found us because we had our rent to own page for attracting tenant buyers. And she saw that we sold properties like that. So she called us and said, "Do you guys buy properties like that?" And we ended up buying your property. And so we started putting more out there on Facebook. And then since then, we've got some great freeways. And then you can also run sponsored ads. But the sellers are reaching out to us. So we don't have to cold call. We're not scraping lists. We're not doing any of that crazy stuff. We're literally just on Facebook, which a lot of people are, they kind of poo-poo Facebook because, old people are on there. But I'm like, guys, old people have houses and they want to sell them to you. So you just have to have a great presence online, tell people what you're looking for, and you'd be surprised. Like, deals will land on your Facebook page and your inbox. They'll call your phone if you put your phone number out there. So if you make it very well known that you're looking for properties, especially the way that we buy them, they're there. Sellers are waiting for you.
Yeah. And for one, we're working on a seller now who's got a beautiful house. It's like a 4,600 square foot house on Longboat Key, which is in Florida. She's open to terms. We're talking about now. She just answered a Facebook post, and this is a $3 million house. Mm-hmm. I've also dealt with houses that we've got one right now in our contract that we're wholesaling for, I think it's like $25,000 up in a tough neighborhood. So when the people see these posts, we've had, some of our friends do car washes. We had one gentleman approach us a couple of years ago. He was selling his business, which happened to be a gentleman's club. So
you just never know.
You never know. So on Facebook, there's a lot of people. It's like 72% of USA is on there, right? And so if I think about the majority of the people we do business with, they're on Facebook. So we found that to be a great way to connect. And it also gives them a reference so they know who they're doing business with, because we share a lot on our own social media, especially our buying page of how we buy properties. And so they feel like they could see who you are. They feel like they could almost get to know you by your online presence. And then if they feel like they could see who you are, they feel like they can almost know you, and you could build that trust and confidence, and then you actually know what you're doing. It kind of makes the whole picture clear to them that, hey, if I do business with them, this feels good. And so it doesn't cost a dime to have a Facebook page. It doesn't cost any money to share that you buy houses in Facebook groups and have sellers see your post and reach out to you saying, I have a property I want to sell. And a lot of these, they're not even on the market. It's just a great way to connect with people without having to have a huge budget. And then we do run sponsored that, like Jen means, we share the message and you just put it in front of more people and get more leads.
So you're talking about not running like meta ads, but doing like boosted posts.
Free posts in groups doesn't cost any money. So if I'm buying in Orlando, I would just join Orlando garage sales that has 60,000 people in it. And I'll make a post in that group saying, I'm looking to buy a house in this neighborhood. Anybody have one? I'm buying one soon. Something like that. But then I could also run sponsored meta ads, which is a little bit more than boosting. But it does that. It just puts that out there.
Yeah. I would say if you do sponsored ads, you definitely want to know what you're doing, because otherwise you could waste a lot of money on boosting and it won't boost anywhere or to anyone properly. But if you find the right companies, they're out there to help you. And Facebook, I guess, can really help as well if you just hop on a call with them.
So what I'm hearing, if I'm a wholesaler, a flipper, and I'm spending 30 or 50 grand a month on marketing, and I'm starting to see margins slim down on my deals and I'm getting less on wholesale fees, I'm hearing that the creative finance space is pretty attractive right now.
Well, if you're spending that much or any dollars on leads, here's my question to you. Do you ever have a seller who wants too much money for their property?
every day that ends in Y, Joe.
Right? And guess what? You're not alone. I did too. Because in the beginning, I was only looking for junkers. And then what I realized is I could do a lot more deals with the same amount of leads by saying, okay, I could buy cash. No, I want more. Well, if I were to pay your price, would you be open to terms? Or I buy it, close on it, but then we just come up with a payment plan. Whether I'm taking over your old mortgage or if it's a free and clear property, we could, set up some payments that way. And just by asking, like flapping your lips 15 more seconds on the same amount of leads are going to open up so many more conversations and so many things. And what I've noticed is that if there's a scale of 1 to 10, highest motivation, these aren't the peoples that are the 1s and 2s and 3s. They have nice houses. Some of them are absolutely stunning, but they're usually highly motivated, right? That 7, 8, especially the 9s and 10s. Like if you're talking to somebody who's super motivated,
already moved.
Like our lady, she rented this house. Tenants moved out, left it a mess. She's out of town taking care of her sick mom with 300 acres to attend to. She doesn't have time to fix it or even have the resources. And she just wants gone. And when we explained to her this, she was like, okay, can I sign this right now today? Like, is she a 9 or a 10? Probably one of the two, probably closer to a 10, right? So it makes you feel like you're a champ when you're spending all your time with 9s and 10s. So that's where we really want to focus on. And the lower level of motivation, we'd spend less time with them.
It's like a standard seller conversation. Even motivated sellers, they're like, I have problems that need to be solved, but I want more money. And which if you talk to any investor, that's probably the primacy of their motivated leads. And most of the investors aren't using any creative strategies because they don't understand it. I think there's a belief that there's so much complexity in it that it's like a shiny object or it's hard to learn. And kind of what I heard you say was like, honestly, it's about just a verbal agreement. Like, hey, simplicity. If I can get a payment that's $500 with no dollars down or low dollars down, and I can rent it for $1,000 or $1,500, I created a spread. Like it's really hard to lose when you do that.
Well, and we talk about buying real estate and how to accumulate cash flowing rentals. This is why I fell in love with this strategy because there's no cap. It works for multifamily. It works for single family homes. There's just no cap to what you can accomplish because I felt like when I was going through banks, I was filled with challenges of having to qualify and I've got great credit. So I can't imagine for some of the listeners, if you're not perfect credit and all that, like it's a pain. And so once I realized that I don't have to do that, which speeds up the process and makes so much easier, the sky's the limit. So when you're first starting off, the first big thing is talk to sellers, get some leads, start having these conversations. That's what's important. And then, what would it feel like to buy one more rental a year or even a month, right? If you're generating that much money in leads, you could get a handful of these deals every month, which could be just some cash flowing rentals. If you're spending $30,000 or $40,000 a month on ads, I am telling you, you'll get more deals just by offering this one thing. Some will be cash still. Don't stop doing that. But also it's a great opportunity to pick up some cash flowing rentals too.
Yeah, that's incredible. Joe, were you doing sales at the car dealership? I'm curious.
For like in the early 2000s for a few years, but then I was a finance manager. So I was the one that dealt with banks. And so when I realized like creative finance, it was almost the same thing when I'm looking at a finance deal with houses. It's the price, it's the down payment, it's the monthly payment, and the term length. I'm like, man, that's the same as a car as it is for a house. And if I could just figure out these 4 things on a house. So Mr. Seller, what's the price? I typically buy with no money down. What's the lowest payment I could get that needs the cash flow, right? And then what's the longest time I could get? And if I could determine those 4 things, the 4 legs of the chair, we call it, or the 4 pillars, once we could figure that out, that's how the deals are made.
Yeah, that's so cool. And if you go to a car dealership, they sell you on the car payment, right? It's like, we'll get that payment way down.
Yeah, but you got to know the other 3 things, though. That's what's important. You got to disclose all 4 things, right? The price, the payment, the term length, and all the good stuff. And once you do,
that's so cool.
Make an educated decision.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, I'm curious, like what you guys are most excited about right now. I know you guys are helping other people do this stuff. What are you guys working on right now? What are you most excited about?
I think it's really cool to just share this message because I got started in the year 2000. My friend bought a course on TV, but it took me until 2016 until I learned that this was even a thing. if I knew back then, obviously what I know now, everybody always hears that story, but I didn't know I could buy a house with $100 down, because at 18 years old, I would have bought one. And it took me till I was 27 to buy the first house that I actually lived in. But I would have bought one at 18 years old if I knew, or even sooner, who knows, right? These were some of the strategies where if you figure this out, I know a big thing plaguing America right now is either affordable housing. So you can get some properties and they cash flow really well. And I love that. But it's also too, it's frustrating to try to find a rental if I'm an investor, because if I'm going to the bank today and I'm paying today's prices and I'm paying today's interest rates, like good luck finding a deal that cash flows and makes sense without a lot of money down. It's almost impossible. And these deals are still out there. So either you're going to wait on the sidelines and wait till rates go back down, or you can still buy houses. And it's been, there's never a bad season for this. Rates are always low the way we buy. So just bringing some awareness that anybody could do this.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, you shouldn't wait to do real estate. You too, but we have the luxury of knowing a lot of people who've done real estate for a lot of time. Waiting to get in the market is always a big thing. I wish I would have done it earlier, just like you espoused right now, Joe. I mean, I could talk to people who've been doing this for 40 years. They say the same thing. Or the other thing that I think is very common is I wish I would have kept more of my assets. So it's just like, for people who aren't in real estate, if you're putting money in the stock market, they say don't try to time the market. It's all about time in the market. So get into the market, because if you look at the history of the stock market, if you look at the history of the real estate market, over a long duration of time, it's going up in a meaningful way. It builds massive wealth for a lot of people. So yeah, if you're sitting on the sidelines right now, you shouldn't be. Don't listen to the fear mongering and the interest rates. There are ways to buy real estate that make sense today.
Well, and the add on that too is like we bought our very first house together in October of 2008. That was literally like when the alarm went off that the world's economy is crashing, right? That's when we bought our first rental. And then we bought one like a year and a half later. And, bought the next one probably about the same time. And so this is as we are hearing the market is crashing, guys, that's when we made our best deals. Some of our very, very best deals is when nobody else wanted to even buy because the market was crashing. So I'm not saying buy every crash and things like that, but be smart about it. Mm-hmm. And like what you said, Adam, is over time, real estate does go up. So the big thing is hold it long time. And next thing you know, you become just some average Joe, become a multimillionaire from it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you definitely will become a millionaire. It's actually really easy to become a millionaire buying real estate. I'm curious, those properties, do you still own those?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You do. Good for you guys.
Yeah, we just sold the second one we bought together. They bought it, I think, June of this year. They were rent-to-own tenant buyers, and they lived there. They moved in 2017. Yeah.
And so they bought it. This was a house, once again, we bought that for $45,000, and they're rent-to-own because just years and years go by. I mean, they bought it for $155,000. They paid our house off. And then they said, okay, guys, we're actually ready to get a mortgage. And it was like the same timing. I'm like, really? And they're like, yeah, we're qualified. We're ready. And
wow.
They were in a school district where it wasn't great for their kids. They needed to get for their kids to get in a certain school district. He was a truck driver. She was a bus driver. But then she had something happen where she's out of work for a little while, and they got everything fixed. I mean, they were always current on rent for great people. And the fact that now they own a home, it's been phenomenal. And yes, we did get a big old check. But once again, that helps, us buy more deals and then continue to grow our portfolio even more. So if you lose one, turn it into 3 more.
That's so cool. Yeah, that's incredible. All right. Well, if somebody wanted to so you found mentors, right? You watched probably like some Carlton Sheets or some CDs or VHS in 2000. I don't know what it was, but I'd be interested.
Got one right here.
Look at that.
Yep.
That's incredible. And then you probably got somebody else, some other mentorship. So what's the best place? There's a lot of noise out there. Where should people go to learn this strategy?
So my favorite thing is and I've learned a lot from because we've been in a bunch of coaching programs, and I've never went to college. I chickened out the last minute, but then I have definitely seen the value in paying for coaching, because that's what changed our whole life. And I've been in part of some really great coaching programs that we got a lot of value from. And then some where, so my big thing is you got to surround yourself with people who are doing what you want to do. Mm-hmm. And that they're currently doing it, right? Because this business changes. And we saw this even just recently. The market was red hot 2 years ago. And then it kind of pivoted quickly to cooling down. And so if you're currently in the business, you're able to adapt to what's happening in the marketplace, which I think is crucial. So get yourself around people who are doing what you want to do. If you have a deal where you've talked to a seller and the seller's like, hey, I want too much money for my house, especially if it's a nice house and it's turnkey, right? Offer them some type of terms. Don't even make it, but ask them the questions. And so if you need help, we always provide a ton of value how to do that. The questions that we ask every seller, the way we've designed it, our seller actually makes us the offer by answering our questions. And to be honest with you, most of our questions are done right through Messenger. So we're not even on the phone with most of them. Most of them are through Messenger. We only get on the phone with like motivated people. So you can do it only about an hour or two a day.
That's crazy. Yeah. Well, I co-sign you and Jen for people. If I wanted to go deep into creative finance, I would come to you guys because you guys do this for real and you guys are good people. You do what you say you're going to do. And I think, there's a lot of people out there there's a lot of noise about creative finance up to, but people should come talk to you guys if they want to know about creative finance. Well, my 2 cents, just because I know you guys and I like to help people avoid the noise.
Well, it's also too, some people just really need more of like a personalized, like step-by-step of exactly what to do. And I found that to be the reason why, we have such a huge success rate is because there's a lot of noise. Like, where do I even start? Like, how do I even do any of this? And what we found was how to break it down so easy that, one of our most popular videos in our YouTube channel is a video of our daughter last year when she was 10, locking up a seller finance deal where I'm in the kitchen, like making dinner, I'm cutting up an avocado and she's messaging with the seller. I'm like, okay, say this. And they're like, yes, we'll do it. So
that's so cool.
Yeah. It's really taken some of the work out of it. Cause I know when I first started, it was a little bit challenging at first.
Well, there is a lot to learn and it can get overwhelming. And I know for me too, coming from an English teaching background, none of that has helped me in this journey, but it's like little steps along the way and it's not worrying about step 42. It's, did I do steps 1 through 5? Okay. Did I do 6, 7, 8, and I think that it's really simple if you just keep it simple, but it's when we get all in our heads and next thing we're trying to make business cards and flyers and websites and we're copying and watching and you're not actually doing the thing that's going to actually get you the deals and help the people out.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's such a great point. You don't need to figure out the whole business or the whole strategy on day one. You just need to take the first step and then the second and then the third, and it will stack up over time. And so will your experience. So, hey, I'm really grateful that I got to see you guys a couple of days ago, but also that you guys spent some time with me today. I know how busy you are. So thank you guys for coming on today. And where can people find you guys?
We are all over social media, but creativefinanceplaybook.com. If you head over there, you can definitely find us. We have YouTube and I love Instagram, Jenn Della Fave. And I try to share real time, like you saw my stories with the burst pipe on the other night on the way to the meetup, real life stuff, because it happens. And so we try to share real time. Yeah.
And creativefinanceplaybook.com. So if you want the script and like how we generate leads for free by using these groups, like it's all detailed, it's all free, go get it, but use it if you're going to get it. Don't change it because that stuff really works well. And if you have a deal that you think might be a deal and you just need some help or you want to connect, the easiest way for me, because I'm on social media, but my cell phone, I actually answer or I'll text with you, but probably just answer your call. It's 585-207-2240. And that is my cell phone. So if you call me, don't be surprised when I answer, but I don't know.
You get calls at like 2 a.m.
I just had one call me at 2 a.m. They're like, hey, I just heard you on a podcast and I just wanted to lock in your number. Sorry, I called you. I'm like, well, I did call him back at 5:30 in the morning because that's when I woke up that day.
Wow. Look at man. That's a bold move. Personal cell phone number out in the world. You can call Joe right now.
I love connecting.
Cool, man. I'm grateful for you guys. I hope you guys, I know you guys are impacting a lot of lives and I hope you guys have a great weekend.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having us on. Great seeing you once again.
Yeah, thanks, Adam.
Awesome. See you.